This meeting is being recorded.
Hello everyone, my name is Kashif Mahmood and today I will present on the role of G7 and G20 in fostering globalization. As globalization has increased economic interdependence, international cooperation has become essential to maintain financial stability, promoting free trade and addressing global challenges. The G7 and G20 are the two of the most influential forums shaping global economic governance. Throughout this presentation, I will discuss the structure, objective, contribution, and globalization, their response to the global crisis, current challenges, and future perspective. Finally, I will provide a critical evaluation of their effectiveness in supporting sustainable and inclusive global economic growth. This presentation have different objectives. As you can see on this slide, the first is explain the concept of a globalization and why global economic governance is important. Second, I will introduce the G7 and G20 and compare their structure and membership. Third, I will examine how these groups promote international trade, financial stability, and sustainable development. Fourth, I will critically analyze their achievement and limitation from a global economic perspective. Finally, I will conclude my discussion future challenges such as digital transformation, climate change, and geopolitical tension, which require stronger international cooperation. Understanding globalization. Globalization refers to the increasing integration of the national economies through international trade, foreign direct investment, financial market technologies, and global supply chain. Businesses today source material, manufacturing products, and sell goods across multiple countries. This has led productivity, innovation, and consumer choices by reducing production costs. However, globalization also creates challenges such as income inequality, environmental degradation, financial crisis, and supply chain disruption. Therefore, countries require international institutions to coordinate economic policy and ensure that globalization benefit both developed and developing countries. There is a key driver of the globalization, trade liberalization, technological innovation, multicultural cooperations. There's the positive and some negative effects of the globalization, like economic impact is higher productivity, increased competition, economic growth, innovation, some negative effect of the globalization of the inequality, supply chain vulnerabilities, and environmental degradations and um, ec- uh, financial problems. Global economic governance. Global economic governance refers to the institution and mechanism that coordinate economic policies among countries. Organizations such as G7, G20, IMF, World Trade, WTO work together promote financial stability, trade liberalization, and sustainable development. Unlike formal organizations with legal authority, the G7 and G20 operate through consensus and cooperation. Their discussion influence the national policies and international agreement. Effective governance is essential because modern economic challenges include financial crisis, pandemic, and climate change and cannot be solved by the individual country among acting alone. The G7 was established in 1975 after the global oil crisis to coordinate economic policies among advanced industrial economies. Its members include Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and United Kingdom and the United States. with the European Union also participating. The G7 focus on micro macroeconomic stability, financial regulation, international security, climate policies, and digital governance. Although it represents few countries than the G20, it includes some of the world's most advanced economies and remains higher influential in shaping international economic policies and responding to the global crisis. The G20. The G20 was created in 1999 following the Asian financial crisis and became a leader formed during the 2008 global financial crisis. Include major developed and emerging economy representing approximately 85% of the global GDP. 75% of the world trade and two-thirds of the global population. Unlike the G7, G20 provides broader representation by including countries such as China, India, Brazil, Indonesia, and South Africa. The diversity make it a more inclusive form that addressing global economic issues and promoting balanced and sustainable globalization. Here is the comparison of the G7 and G20, uh, which represent advanced industrial countries like G7, while the G20 include both developed and emerging markets. G20 account for a much larger share of the global GDP and population, making it more representative of the today world economy. Both groups operate through consensus rather than legally binding decisions. From a MBA perspective, the G20 has becoming more increasingly important because emerging economy now play a significant role in global trade, investment, and economic growth. Role in promoting international trade. One of the major contribution of the both G7 and G20 is promoting international trade. They support a rule-based trading system under the WTO, encouraging trade liberalization and reduce barrier to commerce. According to the theory of competitive advantage, countries benefit by specialization in producing goods where they have lower opportunity costs. This increase efficiency, lower production cost, and expand global market. Businesses also benefit from greater access to the international customers and more efficient global supply chain. Role in financial stability. The global financial crisis in 2008 demonstrate the importance of the international economic coordination. The G20 coordinated fiscal stimulus, strengthened financial regulation, and supported reform through institutions such as the IMF and Financial Stability Board. Base three banking regulation were introduced in improving the resilience of the financial institution. These coordination actions restored investor confidence, stabilized financial market, and prevented a deeper global recession. Financial stability remains essential for encouraging investment, economic growth, and sustainable globalization. This slide explains the role in G7 and G20 role in sustainable globalization. Today, globalization is closely linked with sustainability. G7 and G20 promote green finances, renewable energy, climate action, and sustainable infrastructure investment. They also support the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, including poverty reduction, gender equality, clean energy, and environmental protection. Businesses increase adopt environmental, social, and governance principles as part of their long-term strategies. Sustainable globalization ensures that economic growth is balanced with environmental represent responsibility and social inclusion. The global digitalization has transformed by enabling cross-border data flow, digital payment, e-commerce, and online services. G7 focuses on the artificial intelligence, governance, cyber security, digital taxation, and data protection. G20 emphasized digital inclusion and digital public infrastructure, ensuring that developing countries also benefit from the technological advancements. For businesses, digital globalization creates opportunity to expand internationally, improve efficiency, and innovate while also requiring stronger regulation to address privacy and cybersecurity concerns. Crisis management, the G7 and G20 had demonstrated their importance during global crisis during the COVID-19 pandemic. They coordinated economic stimulus package, vaccine financing, debt relief, and developing countries and effort to destabilize global supply chain. They also addresses energy security and food shortages caused by geopolitical conflicts. These coordination responses highlight that international cooperation is essential because economic crises quickly spread across international global markets. There are the challenges to the global business from a business which is promoted by the G7 and G20 create a more stable and predictable environment for international trade and investment. Lower trade barrier encourage export and foreign direct investment while reducing business costs. Multinational corporations benefit from integrated global supply chain and across the larger market. Despite their achievement, the G7 and G7 face several criticisms. Their decisions are not legally binding, meaning implementation depends on individual government, geopolitical tension, including the US-China rivalry, and Russian-Ukraine conflict offer reduced cooperation. The future outlook. Looking ahead, G7 and G20 will need to address emerging global challenges such as artificial intelligence, digital currency, climate, finance, global taxation, and resilient supply chain. The governing economic importance of the emerging market means that the G20 is likely to play an even greater role in shaping international economic governance. Future success will depend on the stronger cooperation, institutional reform, and ensuring that globalization remains inclusive, sustainable, and beneficial for all countries. There are some strengths of the global policies coordination, crisis management, financial stability, trade liberalization, sustainable development, and investment promotions. But the weakness of the G7 and G20 with lack of the enforcement, political disagreements like China US rivalry, limited representation, and growing pro- protectionism. In conclusion, G7 and G20 are the um, key pillars of the key pillars of the global economic governance. G7 countries are influence advanced economies, while the G20 promotes a broader and more inclusive platform for international cooperation. Their coordination efforts in promoting free trade, financial stability, sustainable development, and crisis management have significant advanced globalization. Although challenges remain, continued cooperation and institutional reform will be critical to ensure that globalization support long-term economic growth, resilience, and shared responsibility. Here are some reference of the G7 and G20, and feel free to ask any question you have. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a good day.